So Thursday morning we're heading once again into Hull Marina Lock to depart out into the Humber estuary, but this time instead of turning to port we will turn to starboard to head home. Our plan is today to make it up to Barmby, where we'll rest up and leave on Saturday to head home and enjoy the pleasures of the River Derwent for a little bit.
I can see the jump from here.
Our reasoning for leaving Hull on the Thursday was twofold. Number one, I didn't want to do a stupid o'clock start on Saturday. We would have to leave Hull at something like 4:30 in the morning. That's not relaxing. But secondly, there were thunderstorms forecast for Friday. So we decided to leave on the Thursday morning, well, around about lunchtime-ish on the Thursday. As soon as we left the lock, we hit the wind. Winds were forecast for that day to be 25 knots, gusting to 45 knots. When we came out of the marina, I would say the winds were running at around about 15 knots, coming from the west, which meant we had wind against tide. The tide is coming in from the east, so we immediately got into a little bit of chop. by the time we reached the Humber Bridge, winds had increased in intensity. They had increased up to 25 knots, and that was straight on the nose. Running directly into the wind, it was great fun. Janet hunkered down, I stood up, bang on the nose. Good job I put plenty of glue on my hair this morning. Whilst the Humber estuary is quite big, it is also very shallow, and there are areas you've got to take extreme caution in. Here we were approaching an area that was showing around about 0.6 on our depth, and it would have been very, very easy to run into a sandbar, so best to just slow down a little bit and pick our way through. The batteries on my camera died, so I missed Outrider passing us. We carried on upstream, hitting the lumps and the bumps, heading into the wind, a headwind all the way up to Barmby on the River Derwent, where we spent a couple of days just resting up, waiting for our journey back up to Navin. Barmby Lock is exceedingly tight for our boat, for Eva Grace. Not only is it narrow, but we have a fixed concrete bridge across the top, which at first view it looks very, very tight, and given that we actually had to go up to get out of the lock, made it quite interesting. So with the lock gates opening, it gives a view of the river. This was a beautiful morning. We were just about 7 o'clock with the tide rising. As we looked out, we can see debris moving upstream. There was debris in front of the lock, which we had to just push through. That was only loose stuff. But we can see there the tidal stream getting ready to push us upstream. So that would make the exit, which is also tight, I found out when we came in, a little bit more interesting yet again. The lockkeeper went down to the end to see us out, and just as we set off, he told me to hold because there was a tree coming up. You see the first bits of it come in, and then Whoa, 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 says my wife, Janet. There's the tree. It's starting to come upstream, and that shoots past us. That would have been nasty to hit that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Continuing the run upstream, it was a case of dodging all the debris, and there was more to come, and also turbulence, especially around some of the sweeping and tight bends. You get a lot of turbulence running with the tide. Here we can see whirlpools and areas of disruption. Approaching Selby, we'd been asked by Selby Rail to slow down to wait for an engineer. First, it's Selby bypass bridge that we have to pass under. This has plenty of height, so no need to have this one lifted. We had to hold a little in Selby awaiting the rail bridge. And so with us now hearing that it's open, I start to open up and move forward, but still awaiting permission. All the debris overtaking us. The tide's running strong. And there we got permission, so we're starting to move forward, and we passed through Selby Rail and then Selby Toll. two very low bridges. Once past Selby, it's into more open stretches of the river again, and even more debris. I think this section between Selby and Cawood was probably one of the worst. In fact, there were parts of this where we just had to choose which patch to hit rather than avoid, and we did have one or two clonks underneath where debris was submerged. And so here we are approaching Cawood Bridge, our last bridge on the river. This time we didn't need to have Cawood Bridge opened. We'd outrun the incoming tide, and so we were at slack water and we had just enough clearance to get through without disturbing the bridge keeper. But the debris, I take it back. It was even worse in this section. We struggled to find a path through it all, but now looking ahead to arriving at Naburn Lock. But before then, here's our friends, our neighbours from Hull Marina, Bay Dream 3, coming downstream. We met them at one of the narrowest sections, typically. And so finally we made it back to Naburn Lock. We had to hang around a little bit, waiting for two boats ahead of us to sort themselves out, to pen in. I don't quite know what they were doing. They were dancing around a little bit, and the one in front got himself crossed up trying to get into the lock. Could have gone in sideways actually, it's big enough. And even when they got in the lock, they were still messing about, not quite sure where they wanted to be. I think these were visitors from foreign climes, well, out of our area at least. And so eventually we got sorted out, we got lifted up in the lock and the lock gates opened, and we could then escape out into familiar cruising waters. Only 10 minutes and we'd be back home. That is, if the two boats ahead of me could actually get themselves sorted. And so here we are, back at Naburn Marina. Just got to turn into the cut, keep out of the shallows, keep to the centre of that little channel, and it is a small channel. A sharp turn to port, a sharp turn to starboard, thread through the other boats and back to our berth. It's been an interesting journey. We were away for 9-10 days. Didn't make our destination. But we had an adventure along the way. We had two engine shutdowns, both the same engine, due to fuel starvation. So we have some work ahead of us to understand why we had problems in that fuel tank. I think I know why, but it means lifting the top off the tank and doing a deep clean inside. Must say though, since we changed the filter at sea, she ran beautifully. She brought us all the way back upstream. So we had a 30 plus mile run back into Hull, and then 60 odd nautical miles upstream back to our base. So from that point of view, maybe we've cleared out some of the muck, but I doubt it. I think this winter we'll lift the top off that tank and give it a really good clean out, pass it through the filters a few times, and then looking forward to having another go next year. So it's a creep it back slowly into our berth. We have to do quite a sharp turn here to starboard, and then luckily Outrider is still out, otherwise it is a very tight thread through between two rather large boats before we get into our berth.
Sorry? Yeah.
So getting very close now, past Forget-Me-Not, and we're the third bay in. I take a transit point off the last tall conifer. Hope they don't cut that down. That's a beautiful transit point for me. Go along, get that alongside me and stop, and then spin, and it should be bang on my bow when we reverse in. So once again, please like and subscribe to see other videos that we will be producing whilst we cruise on Ava Grace, and thank you for watching.